Well, folks, I had a little excitement today. I was relaxing in the boat, kind of working on a problem with Zoleo at the time. The wind had been increasing and kind of getting gusty, and all of a sudden the gusts got real strong, and I heard a clunk off the aft end of the boat. So I went out on the deck, checked it out, and realized that my anchor had dragged, so I was in trouble. Right away, I scrambled forward to pull in the rode to try to get the stern of the boat off the deadhead that it was kind of riding on when I heard the clunk. I went back to start the engine. Fuel line was off, so I had to reconnect that. I'd taken it off because it was in the way when I was working on the aft deck. And so then I went back forward to try it again to pull the anchor, but I could not pull it out. And so I secured the chain. I was able to get the chain up to the boat and went back to the helm, powered forward, pulled the anchor out, pretty much yanked it out of the ground and dragged it to the middle of the anchorage to try to give me a little bit more room while I pulled the anchor. Then I went back forward, pulled the anchor, and got out of that anchorage due to those strong gusts and very close shores. I knew I didn't want to try to re-anchor. It was just too soft a bottom, and it wasn't a tenable situation. I didn't have any nav. I just didn't have time to set up the nav on the tablet, so I pretty much used memory to pass the spit on the entry. It's fairly shallow there, but I could kind of remember how I got in, so I went clear, got clear of the anchorage, and then I went below and got the nav tablet, set it up so I could proceed to the alternate site that was about a mile straight south. You'll see that in the illustrations. The problem was just the steep escarpments kind of all along the west side there. There was a very steep slope and cliffs to the north that just kind of funneled those winds through that narrow anchorage. And then the gusty winds, the soft bottom, the short scope of 5 to 1 really all contributed to the situation. So I had to go. There was no choice, and maybe a little nervous at times. So a little more excitement today. It seems like every day I've got something new to happen. Well, today turned out to be about as eventful as it was yesterday with the drone crashing into the trees. I was sitting, kind of relaxing in the cabin in the anchorage this morning. Actually, afternoon, I think. I'm not sure what time it was. Anyway, the winds were kind of building, gusting more and more. I thought my anchor at 5 to 1 in a 4.5 foot depth was plenty to hold the boat in position and not drag. Well, I was wrong. It dragged. I was sitting in there writing, I think I was sending some messages on Zoleo, and I heard this bang or noise of obviously something not right. And so I immediately went out on the aft deck and saw that I was up against a tree that was planted kind of close to shore, and the stern and the kayak were kind of hitting that. Obviously the anchor dragged. I go into emergency mode and try to pull up the anchor a little bit to try to pull me off what was holding there, hoping that maybe it would hold a little bit. I was able to pull it up a little bit, but I couldn't really make too much progress. So I went back to try to start the engine. Then I realized I pulled the fuel hose off the night before because it kind of blocks my path to get water from the lake. I hooked that up, started the engine, and put some power to it a little bit to bring it up a little bit to try to slack the anchor rode a bit, and then tried to pull it up. I still couldn't pull it up. I could get it up to the chain, but I could not get it out of the bottom, so it was stuck hard. The problem is I was on shore and I couldn't stay there. It was not a tenable situation. I cranked the chain around the bow cleat went back and powered the engine, and I just powered it pretty strongly to get that anchor to break loose and just drag it. If I had to drag it into the middle, I was going to do that. So I did. I dragged it about halfway through the center of the little cove I was in, then went forward and was able, and it was of course loose at that point, so I was able to pull it up and then quickly get on the power and get out of that little anchorage I was in, because it was bad news. I was downwind, and it just wasn't a good place to be. I thought again that the waves weren't a factor, although there was some wind. There was enough of a spit that blocked the entrance to that cove. I wasn't worried about waves, but the wind gusts were enough that evidently it broke the anchor loose. Even despite the a good anchoring condition, I did only have a 5-to-1 scope. Maybe a 7-to-1 would have held it. I don't know. It's a moot point because I had to go. So I got out of there, and just to the south of here was another little cove, which I was aware of because I had looked at the map or chart, and I knew that was a good place to go. So I went right across the bay, but I had no navigation at that point. I got out of this cove without any navigation. I had depth, but that was it. So as soon as I got out free, hopefully that's Zoleo, because I've been dealing with them all day too. Anyway, I put one tablet up that I had the marine navigation on, fired that up, and was able to then go into this cove where I'm currently at, and anchored. I tried to anchor the first time, it didn't work. Dragged, just wouldn't grab. I don't know why. It was just too much rock maybe on the bottom. I pulled anchor again, tried a second time, and this time I decided to come into the more protected cove. Initially I wanted to be a little bit more free to be able to go with the flow of the wind if something did release again. It just wouldn't hold out there, so I came into this smaller cove, put the anchor down, and it held here. That's where I'm at right now. Had a nice steak dinner, steak tenderloin, salad, rolls, red wine, and potatoes. I guess I had potatoes too. Nice dinner and a nice evening. I sat out in the evening, was out on the aft deck for just a few minutes ago, and but I don't know if it was black flies. I couldn't tell if they were black flies or not. Whatever it was pestering me to the extent that I just couldn't stay out there. So I came back in the cabin. I'm going to have a little red wine here and relax and listen to an audiobook, and then probably hit the sack. All kinds of messages coming in this evening. You can hear the beeps, so that's what that is. Zoleo talking to me. So I probably better pick up those messages and see what's going on. Tomorrow I will move, not very far, but I'm going to go beyond the bridge, which is, I think, the technical bottom of the lake, or at least they call that the 3 mile. I think that's the 3 mile point, so maybe it's 3 miles above the actual start of the lake. And then I'm going to work down and see how far I can go. The wind's supposed to pick up in the afternoon, so I got to find an anchorage. I'm not going to go maybe 5-6 miles, and find a good anchorage that'll cover me for that wind. It'll be similar to what today where I dragged, so I need to make sure I have good coverage, so good protection, I should say. Anyway, you have a good evening. We'll talk to you tomorrow.